One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Royal Blue Podcast sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast sound check. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's the Wednesday show. We are live and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got Connor O'Neill. Connor, back again. How are things?
Very well. I mean, it doesn't seem long ago since I was on, literally on Monday with Chris. So, yeah, it's good to be back on.
Absolutely. So there is a slight change in lineup. Tony Scott was originally slated to be on today's show, but he was unable to make it. So Connor has done an absolute solid, and he's come in an hour early for his shift, and appeared on the Royal Blue Podcast. I mean, to be fair, Connor, I always make fun of it of not doing enough Royal Blue shows, but you have done a solid for me today.
I like to think now the fact I've come in early is to turn the tide a little bit.
I'll stop taking the mickey. I mean, to be fair, you did a show Monday. You've done one today, and you're scheduled to appear next Wednesday as well.
I know there'll be too much to be on the Royal Blue Podcast.
Well, it'll be interesting because we're going to talk a little bit of takeover, but obviously mainly we're going to talk about Arsenal today, preview it. So when we do our predictions and team selections, it'll be nice to have you can have the final word on Arsenal next week, and hopefully it'll be a win. Well, let's see what happens with that then. Today's agenda then, as mentioned, we are going to look ahead to Arsenal, and we're going to give our predictions, we're going to give our score lines, we're going to give our team selections as well, but we'll also talk a little bit of takeover expected to happen or to be completed and confirmed this week, mid-December. There has been suggestion by a couple of reports that it will now be next week. So we'll see how that goes. As always, give us a thumbs up and drop us a like. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, your support is greatly appreciated. We are live, so get your comments in and interact with the show, interact with the stream, and we'll read them out as usual. Connor will go with the takeover first, then before we start talking about Arsenal. As mentioned, it was mooted as mid-December. There's nothing to suggest that there's anything wrong, but Alan Myers, works for Sky Sports News, has suggested on social media that now it's going to be pushed back to next week, or an announcement will be pushed back to next week. I guess we just kind of want this over the line now, don't we?
Yeah, that's what everyone's waiting for, isn't it? I think I said on Monday that it's a big step that needs to be taken, just so we know a bit of clarity and a bit of direction of where we're going next. So yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the big thing from this is you've got to follow the process, and the process, takes its course, comes to an end in due course. So, yeah, it can't come soon enough, kind of the process being completed, and hopefully that'll be the result in the Fredkins being the new owners of Everton Football Club.
Just on Dan Friedkin, and we've discussed this at length, his time at Roma, because there's obviously been some natural concerns about Roma's slight decline this season, and he's already gone through a number of managers. What has been your thoughts on that? Because I know, like you said, this is the second time you've been on this week, but it's probably the first time you've been on a while where we can speak about the new owners, and you can kind of give your opinion on it. Any concerns at all with regards to that?
I think there's always concerns, isn't it, about anyone who comes in and takes over the football club that you support and you love, because you've got to hope that they do the right things. I mean, you look at Manchester United, and their fans were desperate to see the back of the Glazers, and obviously Jim Ratcliffe comes along, and it looks like they've got their local boy who's going to be the saviour and transform their fortunes. And if I'm being honest, he's made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and not just bad decisions, but some of the stuff he comes out with as well. Obviously, I don't know if anyone's seen his comments over the weekend, and talking about ticket prices and stuff like that, where they were very alarming, to say the least. So you can never be too sure what's going to happen when a takeover at a football club, does happen. But Everton fans have just got to hope that the Fredkins can bring one thing that's been, massively missing Everton in the last few years, and that's stability. You think Farhad Moshiri's tenure's been absolutely wild, from the open checkbook approach, from manager to manager to director of football. It's been wild, and you just got to hope that there's some stability now coming down the line, and Everton kind of settles down, and the club kind of gets a bit of a level head and above par. So, but obviously naturally people will say, well, you look at Roma and it's been anything but that. It can be two ways. Obviously there is understand for concern because it doesn't look great on paper, but then on the flip side you could say they're striving for success, and they're not going to stop until they find the right person to be the sports director, or the right person to be the manager. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? I think I understand concern and why people be a little bit looking at Roma thinking, my God, this doesn't look too much different what we've gone through the last few years under Farhad Moshiri. But you just got to hope that they find the right man when they take over Everton, and things settle down, and we kind of start to build our way back up.
Looking at this month in isolation then, and considering what we've just spoke about there, Friedkin's recent track record of sacking managers, we've got obviously a tough run of games coming up: Arsenal, Chelsea, City. Has he got to pick points up against these teams, you think, Dyche, for Friedkin not to be, doing the bullets on him, basically?
Yes and no. Again, I think, yes, he's got to pick points up because you can't just roll over in these fixtures, and I spoke about it on Monday in for this weekend at Arsenal. You want to see an improved performance from the last away game, which was Manchester United, where, let's face it, we were quite good for half an hour, conceded an unfortunate goal, I think I safe to say. Obviously he takes a wicket deflection and goes in, but then we just fell apart and made some bad individual mistakes, and it was almost like the gameplay and actually keeping our heads, we just lost our heads. So you don't want to see a repeat of that. So in that respect, Sean Dyche has got to pick points up, and you have got to see some better performances. However, I don't think he'll be judged solely on these next three matches. Yeah. I think there's a wider picture and a wider context to all this. I don't think he'll just be judged on playing Arsenal away, Man City away, and Chelsea at home in between them two games. So
you're saying that, though? Will Friedkins think that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not that freaking am I? So I can't comment for what he's thinking. But I think if it was me personally, I think he'd be judging them on a bigger context and a bigger picture than just three isolated games in which you play two of the most informed teams at the minute in the Premier League, and one of the best teams in the world on the day.
I just realised I said pulling the bullets when I meant to say pulling the trigger.
Pulling the trigger
on Sean Dyche, which
it's the problem with live productions, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, you can't edit things, can you? 10 days then we're going to have had off since the Wolves game, and then obviously we got the Merseyside derby postponed. Then obviously we got Arsenal. Do you think they'll have any positive, negative impact on the team? It's almost like another international break, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because on one hand, you probably say, oh, well, probably good to have 10 days off and recoup and refresh and, maybe work on a few things in the training ground. But you probably think after the Wolves game, you probably just want to go back into the Merseyside derby a couple of days later and go again and, try and build up a bit of head of steam and keep momentum going. So I think I think the right call was made last Saturday to call the game off 100%. It probably didn't help Everton, did it? Because you're probably thinking you just want to get back out there, get back playing, can keep that momentum going. And, all of a sudden, if you can beat Liverpool, it's 2 wins on the bounce. You've picked up 3 points that people probably didn't expect you to pick up. Different moods, isn't it? Different atmosphere. So, yeah, I think it should help because I think it'll give people a chance to, rest and recuperate, and, as I say. But I think if we're being on some momentum and, keeping the stamina going, I think it's a bit of a blow that we didn't play on Saturday, because I think if we did, managed to keep up the momentum going, then it would have been huge going into this weekend.
I think in the short term it might not benefit us in terms of, like you said, we got the win against Wolves. If we could have continued the momentum going against Liverpool, even a draw, you probably would have took a draw, wouldn't you? I know it's the last game at Goodison Park with the Merseyside derby, and you would have loved the win. But
you think, don't you, obviously we're coming up to that point in the season now, aren't we, where we play a lot of matches, and you think, you look at this year, obviously it's 3 games in 7 days again, isn't it? Because it's Chelsea, City and Forest. So that will take its toll on the squad, because we saw last year with the Christmas schedule when we played, I think we played 3 games in 6 days, I think it was last year. Yeah. And if we're being honest, I think by the time we got to Wolves on the 29th, we looked absolutely dead on our feet and looked like we were done for a little bit, because we didn't have the squad capacity to rotate and make wholesale changes like other clubs to the Premier League. So you'd like to think that maybe the long term, going into the back end of Christmas, that the 10-day break will have served us well, and we will look a little bit more refreshed than what we maybe done this time last season. But I think from our right here, right now, not being able to maybe keep up that momentum is a bit of a blow, and not getting back out there after such a commanding winning performance against Wolves.
The Christmas period doesn't seem to be as extensive as it has been in the past. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, because they've obviously cut out that New Year game, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, because obviously we play Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, but then don't play then until the following Saturday. I think is that right? So they've cut out that middle New Year game. So yeah, it's not as intense, I don't think, as what it has been in the past. Which hopefully, like I say, will bode well for Everton, because I think last year they were found wanting a little bit because they don't have the squad capability to make wholesale changes like some of the other clubs do.
Is no one playing New Year's Day?
Yeah, there is games, but they're spread out, aren't they? So I think the round of fixtures start again on the 29th, and then I think they run from like the 29th, 30th, New Year's Day. So like the spread out across them days. It's just Everton play one of the games playing on the Sunday.
I mean, we've been to New Year's Day games in the past. And
not great, are they?
They're just horrendous. I think I remember one of the most recent ones was against Leicester.
That was abysmal, wasn't it?
There's just no atmosphere. No one was kind of up for it, and
we lost 1-0.
Jamie
Vardy scored.
So yeah, we're getting a couple of questions in, so we'll refer back to them. And Daniel Reel, who commented on the last one, the last show. I came from Oz for the derby and have tickets for the away end at Arsenal this weekend. Let's hope I'm not cursed and this one doesn't get cancelled too. At least Daniel's not going to miss another Everton game.
No, it doesn't looks like Storm Dara's passed now, hasn't it? And there's no other storms on the horizon. So hopefully the only storm is an Everton storm invading the Emirates on Saturday. But no, I think he should be safe this weekend. I mean, they are famous last words there, so apologies if anything occurs between now and Saturday.
You're not predicting the weather forecast.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Daniel also says, as long as this takeover is done by Christmas, we will be happy. 6 months is a long enough time to wait. I think people are getting a little bit itchy, but I do think there's still confidence that everything's going fine. There's no suggestion that there's nothing wrong or anything like that, is there?
No. It's just a case of seeing out the process, I think is the best way to describe it.
I think just before we came on here, we suggested that it might even be pushed back another week, and there might be an announcement on Christmas Eve. But I'm not saying that is the case, but you wouldn't put it past how proceedings go and stuff like that. But we talked about it, didn't we, last year? Manchester United did the exact same thing when they announced their partial 25% takeover of Manchester United, and they released everything on Christmas Eve. Eugene McGeever says, happy birthday, Bainesy. Leighton Baines.
40 today, isn't he? Like 4-0.
He doesn't look 40, does he?
No, and what a player. Certainly
player.
one of the best players I've seen in an Everton shirt in my lifetime.
Obviously, we don't know. It's like speculation. Don't know what he wants to do with his career. Whether he wants to pursue a career in further coaching or management. Could you see Leighton Baines being an assistant, even a manager at some point in the future?
I don't know, do you? Because, like I say, we don't know what his ambitions are. Obviously, at the minute he's doing a good job with the under-18s. They've had a solid start to the season, picked up some good wins. One most recently against Liverpool. And for anyone who's at a loose end tonight, they are actually in action at Goodison Park against Nottingham Forest in the Youth Cup. So if everyone's at a loose end and wants an extra visit to Goodison Park, then it'd be well worth getting yourself along there tonight to brave the cold elements. But yeah, I don't know. We don't know, do we? Because we don't. He's very much a man who keeps himself to himself and just gets on with the job, I think, and that's why I think we all had so much love and respect for him as a player, didn't he? Because he just literally just rolls out, produced an 8 out of 10 performance every week minimum.
Yeah.
Walk back off, and there was no fuss, no clamour, no nothing. So yeah, I think we don't know what his ambitions are, and he's probably just quite happy doing what he does at the minute, and that's managing Everton under 18s.
Definitely Mr. Consistent, so we'll watch that space with Leighton Baines, but obviously happy birthday. Interesting one here, Connor, because we've just talked about the period that Dyche and Everton go through now against those 3 teams. David Murphy says he has to win every game, but he's put 3 laughing emojis at the end of it. I don't know whether tongue-in-cheek there, but does he have to win every game for us to stay in?
I don't think he does. I think that's a bit unrealistic, isn't it? I think, like I say, we can't speak for the Fredkins because we don't know what the Fredkins are thinking. We don't know what their plans are. But I think Sean Dyche's Everton tenure will be judged on a lot more than just what the next 3 games had to come. Because I think that would be quite harsh, if I'm being honest. I think you can't judge people Because look, Everton, for all we know, Everton could go to Arsenal on Saturday, and touch wood, this doesn't happen. But Everton go to Arsenal on Saturday, take the lead, be absolutely superb, and then be on the wrong end of a controversial refereeing decision which sees them reduced to 10 men. They end up then going on to draw the game or getting beat. Now, that's not Sean Dyche's fault, really, is it? That a refereeing decision's gone against Everton. So it's in them aspects why I think it's hard to judge people on one-off games, because I just think you end up in a position where, like a mitigating factor like that could go against you, and you've got no control over it, and it's not your fault. And so I think it's always hard, I think, to just gauge and make decisions off one game or 3 games. I think you've got to look at a broader picture and a broader kind of horizon of what's to come, what we've seen, and what we think could happen next.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, David Murphy there finishes off with, "Come on, fellas, let's face it. He's an appalling defeatist manager who sets us up not to get beat. It's abhorrent."
I think that's harsh, because I think he has done a good job in the last 2 years in keeping Everton in the Premier League. And I know people might not agree with that, and people, will be critical of the way he sets Everton up at times. And, I think Everton have become a little bit predictable on occasion. I think certainly the Brentford game, that second half, was just far too predictable. And I think after about 10 minutes of that second half, we kind of all knew it was going to be one of them afternoons where we maybe wouldn't be able to break them down because of how we'd set up and how they'd set up. But I think that's an incredibly harsh take on Dyche, because I think ultimately he has done a good job across the 2 years he's been here, because there has been incredibly challenging circumstances in which he's had to manage in.
I've seen this stat actually. I need to verify it, but I'll say it now. Don't know whether you've seen it as well, Connor, but Tottenham have lost 19 Premier League games in 40 matches. And Everton had only lost 16 or something along those lines. I need to verify that stat.
Tottenham have lost more Premier League games this year than Everton have, haven't they, this season?
That's insane, isn't it? It's insane. I mean, I think...
Because Ange plays the right way and he plays a high line, it's, it's
is
almost...
that the right way, is it?
Well, in the eyes of a lot of people it is, isn't it? So...
I think...
I think Everton have got problems. I think Everton do have problems. I think they've got limitations. I think, like I say, I think the Brentford game at home highlights Everton's limitations in terms of we don't really have that spark and that ability for someone to get on the ball and make something happen out of nothing. I think that's apparent, it's quite clear. And we also are prone to making some bad individual mistakes on an almost weekly basis. You look this season, some of the goals we've conceded have been so poor from a defensive point of view. You look at, for example, the Bournemouth game, one of them goals that Bournemouth scored were actually any good. They were all just really bad defensive mistakes and, bad from a defensive point of view. But I think, kind of the hammering that Sean Dyche takes from some quarters, I think is a little bit unjust, because, like I say, I think he has done a good job over the last 2 years. You think last year he kept Everton in the Premier League despite points deductions. The year before, obviously, he inherited the mess from Frank Lampard. We then had a massive wobble under him, if we're being honest, around that March, April time, and you started to feel. I mean, I remember coming back from Goodison after we'd been beat 4-1 by Newcastle and thinking, I think that it could be curtains now. I think that could be then. We just didn't look like we had any fighting spirit, and it looked like we just didn't have that little bit of fire in our belly to get over the line. But Sean Dyche, found a way to make sure everyone did get over the line. Okay, on the final day against Bournemouth in dramatic circumstances, but they got over the line. They got over the line last season. Was it 3 weeks to spare in the end? And okay, yeah, this season's been rough. It's been, there's been ups and there's been downs. But I think some of the kind of the takes are, I think, a little bit uncalled for. And I think a little bit harsh.
I think if we bring it back to the here and now, I think Wolves was obviously a really good result. Wasn't really too fussed on the performance, especially when you win. Obviously, you want the performance as well. I think coming out of that game, because it was so emphatic in terms of the result, I know Wolves, scored 2 own goals, but 4-0 for me is emphatic. But I still think, we can't get too ahead of ourselves. It's just one win.
No, you can't. But we're talking about we're talking about judging them on games. But we can only judge, if in that case, we've got to judge him on the last game that he took charge of, and Everton had an emphatic 4-0 victory over Wolves. So what does that tell you? You can't spin it both ways. You can't be like, he's got to go to Arsenal, get something. He's got to get something at home to Chelsea. He's got to get something away to City, but then not take into the fact what he's just done against Wolves. You can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes some supporters maybe want it both ways. They want to almost mask over the fact that we beat Wolves 4-0 and focus on what's to come. But you judge them on the last game, and Everton had a resounding 4-0 victory over Wolves.
It's a weird one because the derby was postponed, and we're not going to know we're never going to know whether we would have won or not. But it's almost given, even though we beat Wolves, it's a little bit of a reprieve. Now, that's not a critical thing on Sean Dyche. What I'm saying is it's taken Liverpool, one of those bigger games in the month, out of the equation. Now it's only down to the 3 big games, and I know Forest we talked about as well at the end of the month. That's massive, let's face it. Because if we go into that Forest game having lost the next 3, then Forest does become huge, and we know how well they're doing. You know, you're probably, in all realism, you'd probably go, well, I'd love to take 2 points out of the next 3. You'd probably even take 1, but looking at it in a different way, I'd take 2 defeats and a win, because then you're getting the extra point with the 3. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next 3 games, 3 tough games, but which could feasibly see us in the relegation zone, depending on the other games go. But let's face it, I think Ipswich's run is even worse than ours. Towards mid to the end of December, even January, they've got a run of like Chelsea, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, like huge games where you just think they're definitely not going to pick points up. And I know it never really works like that. Robbo, let's go to another question. Robbo says, "Morning lads, successful clubs sack managers. They'll do it until they get it right. Dyche is a manager that needs to go, and no one aside promoted, relegated, threatened side would hire him as a gamble." I think where Robbo says there, they'll do it until they get it right. Like I just can't have that take just purely
is not that like
what we've done in the past.
Yeah, and like it's not worked, and like as far as Michel's been criticised for pulling the trigger, and when you decide it's not going to work, and the hiring and firing of managers is something that people criticise a lot of other clubs for, don't they? And Everton have been at the forefront of hiring and firing. You look at the middle of Michel's tenure as owner of the football club. So yeah, I really don't see the whole firing and firing thing, and think everyone's entitled to their opinions, and look, I understand the frustrations around Sean Dyche and what has occurred and what hasn't occurred, etc. But I just think hiring and firing managers, what is the point? Like, that brings nothing but unstableness.
I think it only works when you've got unlimited amounts of resource and huge sums of money, for instance.
But no one's got that anymore because PSR.
It worked for Chelsea for a decade.
Yeah, because it was a free fall, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Whereas now, you look like, I don't want to harp on Man United, but you look at Man United, they brought in Ruben Amorim. There's already an acceptance that it's going to be a slow process because he's inherited a squad that he's stuck with, and that he can't play his favourite 3-4-3 formation because he doesn't have the players to do so. So they've now got to they can't bring anyone in January because of PSR, because they spent so much money last summer, and they've sacked out Ten Hag this season and his coaching staff. So they've got to get to next summer, hope that they can offload a load of players and trade basically off, get rid of players and bring players in. So it's going to it takes forever. Like, you can't, but if he has 6 bad results, he lost home to Forest this weekend. If he loses again this weekend and then loses again and maybe wins but then loses, say he wins 2 games in 6, would you say that United have got to sack him because they're on a poor run of form and he's not the right man? No, because the situation that you inherit, and whether we like it or not, like I said earlier, Sean Dyche is working under some pretty challenging circumstances, and he's been like that since he probably come into the football club. You think of his first summer in charge, there was very little room to manoeuvre because of PSR, and it was very much a case of, you think of Danjuma come in, not a lot. There wasn't major signings, and on the final day of the window, he lost Alex Iwobi because, let's face it, Fulham made a bid that was too good for us to turn down given this current situation with his contract. This summer was the same, wasn't it? I know a lot of people were quite happy to see him go, but Onana's sold because for PSR reasons and to try and get us back on an even keel. We do well to keep hold of Jarrett around, but then he gets injured. So, it's circumstances, isn't it, that you can't always control. So I think the hiring and firing kinds of stance, and good club students, they get it right. That way used to work because, like I say, it was a free fall, and when you had tons of money to spend, it was great, like Chelsea did, where you just turn over your squad every summer. Now with PSR and the way football works and the finance business side behind it, I think that hiring and firing way is just impossible now. It's just not going to work.
Robert with another question here, which I kind of agree with. So thanks for interacting with the pod, Robbo. If I was a player looking at a new club, Dyche would have put me off Everton. We ain't going to attract players of quality we need with him in charge. I think from a point of view, I agree with that to an extent. I think if you're a player who likes to get on the ball, pass it around a little bit, very technical on the ball, good quality, I think you're probably not looking at Everton with Dyche in charge as, a place where you could flourish, develop and grow. I think you'd only have to look at the perfect example of Amadou Onana, who, I wasn't really his biggest fan, to be honest. I don't think he had the best attitude. I don't think he was as good as what he thought he was in his own head either, to be honest. But he was probably our most technically gifted player on the ball, certainly, as a holder midfielder as such. Would you agree with that, though? Do you think players will be put off by coming to Everton if Sean Dyche was to be, to stay on, even be offered a new contract?
No, not really.
You don't agree with it?
I think people want to play in the Premier League, don't they? In Everton, a Premier League football club.
I guess in Dyche coming, he's a player who...
and I think people, obviously if you're competing for a high end, the top class players, then Everton might be a struggle to sell because obviously they're not in the Champions League, not in Europe. You look at at Brighton, for instance, who could make Europe this year, and you look at last year, Aston Villa obviously got Champions League football for this season. So, that is the difficult points of where you can't sell Europe and stuff like that. But I think you look, this summer coming, Everton going to a brand new stadium, Bramley Moore Dock, start of a new era for the football club, Premier League club. I think most people would be delighted to come and play for Everton. Maybe I'm blinkered, I don't know. But
no, but I think in terms of how a manager would like to play and set up, I don't think it was clear he wasn't suited to Onana when Onana didn't play towards the back.
But Onana hasn't been great for Aston Villa though either, has he?
He's been injured though as well, hasn't he? He hasn't played much.
But he wasn't exactly when he was playing, he was one of the match days again today, was it, and stuff like that.
No, I agree with that, and I've said I don't think he's as good as what he thinks he is. But in terms of a player who you would like to get on the ball and basically dictate how your midfield wants to play, it's almost like the American quarterback style player, isn't it? That's how you see those type of players. He was probably more suited to that, and Dyche, again, his attitude was poor, but Dyche still didn't fit into a Dyche team.
But then Everton's best performances last season come when Onana didn't play.
Absolutely.
So
Danny Church says, I will thank Dyche for saving us over the last 2 seasons with what he had to deal with on and off the pitch, but his football is too predictable and he uses his subs too late. I think he'll be going soon. Midweek friendlies, or I guess behind closed door friendlies, we'll move on to that. Everton, they might even be playing now. I'm not entirely sure what the time of it is, but Everton have got a behind closed door friendly against Mansfield Town, and the players expected to be in that starting lineup: Nathan Patterson, Seamus Coleman, Jake O'Brien, Armando Broja, Yusuf and Yusuf Shamiti.
It was yesterday, wasn't it, the friendly?
Was it?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, they played anyway. Options-wise, if we can get them back fit and firing, that'll be a huge difference to the bench, coming in the next couple of weeks, as long as we don't suffer any more injuries.
Oh, yeah, and that question there about the substitutes, I think them players coming back into the fold, certainly Broja and Shamiti, would make things very interesting in that respect, wouldn't it? Because all of a sudden it will give Dyche more attacking options and more options in from which, he can choose from. So, and look, I think the good thing to say, it's not uncommon for clubs to play behind closed doors friendlies in midweek, especially when the teams have got players coming back from injury and stuff like that, which obviously Everton have got in Broja and Shamiti. It's not uncommon for them to play matches, so that's not out the ordinary. I think playing this game. But like I say, I think going back to the substitutes, Shamiti and Broja, obviously Broja's not back in the fold, isn't he, 'cause he's going against Bulls, but Shamiti gets himself back in the fold as well. Dyche's got some very interesting options moving forward, which could or could not prompt, criticism or, questions being asked of him if he doesn't change it up a little bit earlier than what we tend to see. But yeah, I think the good thing is it's a positive step, isn't it, that they're getting game time and they're getting more minutes, because like I said earlier, with the games coming up and them 3 games in 7 days in December, the back end of December, if Everton could put, Calvert-Lewin plays 1 or 2 and then looking a bit jaded, but then if you can put Broja in, and Schmitty's an option off the bench, it's a whole different world, isn't it, to what we've seen at times this season where, Everton have been relying on the same kind of 13, 14 players to get them through games because that's all Sean Dyche had at his disposal.
just talking about the striker situation, then Echo columnist Michael Ball kind of posed the question whether Breuer would be played down the middle by himself or he played alongside Calvert-Lewin. I'm sure we'll find that out soon enough. When
that's going to be a debate in itself, isn't it? Because
Well,
I think when Brozier gets himself fully fit, and is an option to start, because I think I know he come off the bench, didn't he, against Wolves, and he would have been in the squad against Liverpool. But you do wonder if he's maybe still a week or two away from being able to start a game,
a full 90
and,
or
get a full 90 under his belt. But I think, without preempting what could be to come on the Real Blue podcast, I think that could be an episode in itself, couldn't it? Because there's been plenty of talk about Everton going to a 4-4-2 and playing two centre forwards. I mean, I personally don't think they can do that with Beto Calvert-Lewin. I think we've all seen with our own eyes, haven't we, over the last couple of years? That just doesn't work. They're two very similar. They both want to do the same thing. However, Brozier could be an interesting option alongside Calvert-Lewin, and yeah, I think that'll be a good segment or its own show in itself. I think when the opportunity to do so arises.
I mean, we know Sean Dyche doesn't like to experiment, and to be fair, I get that. Why would you try to experiment in such high stakes games? But in all fairness, without suggesting throwing these games away, I'm not saying we should forfeit the next three, but would the next three be the perfect opportunity to try the 4-4-2 with Breuer and Calvert-Lewin up top?
It could be an option, or it could be something that we see, couldn't it, make moving with respect moving forward. So like, you know, if Everton won down at home to Chelsea, for instance, does he throw Brozier on with Calvert-Lewin and go 4-4-2 and see what it's like for the last half an hour? He could well do that. We don't know. I don't think he'll do it from the off at Arsenal at the weekend, that's for sure. I think we'll see more of what we've seen so far this season. But I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be interesting as the weeks go by what he does do, and like the more Brozier gets fit, the more does he come into his thinking.
John Jones says play Breuer wide right. He is better than Lindstrom and Harrison. Could you? I just see him as like a centre forward. To be honest.
So do I, to be fair.
But again, you never know how Sean Dyche will set up. Daniel Reel says standards are too low, fellas.
Is he talking about my dress sense or my hair, or
maybe just the podcast in general?
Just the podcast in general. Spartans. I do the second show this week and standards already dripping. There are Turner Buckland and Joe Thomas can't come quick, and Chris Beasley can't come quick enough.
Are you joking, aren't you? They hate it. Now, to be fair, Daniel, I mean, I get it. Standards have slipped throughout the club for years. I don't think that's, that is a thing that the club has not been up to standard for probably certainly for the last 10 years.
Sherry's tenure, isn't it, really?
Martinez left and Moyes and stuff like that. So we're not, I'm not Dyche's biggest fan. The people who watch this podcast will know that. I completely respect Connor's opinion, and I think I've said this in the past, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way or anything like that, but the ideal scenario is that Dyche gets enough points for Everton just to see his contract out, and then we reset and move on in the summer, and then see how far we can get in the cup. I mean, I hate saying let's have a cup run, let's go and win the cup, let's try and go and win the cup, but we know how difficult it is with even like the lesser of the big teams probably having more of a chance of winning. What did you watch the Wolves West Ham game on Monday?
I was working, so I didn't fully watch it because I was in the background as I was working.
West Ham obviously got the win. What do you think was the better result there for us? Was that the better result, West Ham winning?
Possibly. I mean, I think you've just got to look after yourself, haven't you? And then everything else takes care of itself. I'm not really into this whole like results go our way elsewhere, because I think if you just look after yourself, then you've done your own job and you don't have to rely on others. So
I guess with Wolves getting beat though, it's kind of like still 5 points clear with the game in hand.
Yeah, there is that element, but like I say, I just think at the point of the season we're at now, just focus on yourself and win enough games yourself and you'll be fine.
No, absolutely. I mean, he was absolutely under tremendous pressure, the West Ham manager.
Both of them are, aren't they?
Obviously Wolves again getting beat. Did you see, well, first off, you see Wolves making a change at any point?
I think they've sounded out managers, haven't they, by the sounds of it? They can't get who they want in. So I think they are looking to make a change, but I don't think they can get anyone in. So who knows? But I think if O'Neill loses, it is Ipswich this weekend, isn't it? Wolves have got if he loses to Ipswich this weekend, it's hard to see where he comes back from that. So a change could be in the offering, but it's who they bring in, isn't it? You know?
The prime target for Wolves, if they do sack O'Neill, would Moyes, but I might fall flat on my face here because they might sack him and get him, but they'd want David Moyes, but I don't think he'd go to them.
No, I mean, I think it's one of them with Moyes, isn't it? He's got to be very clever, I think, himself and what job he takes next. And there does seem to be a bit of a doom and gloom feeling around Wolves in the sense of they've got big PSR issues and they've had to sell a lot of the better players, and you know they're kind of trading to survive almost. So whether he looks at that and thinks actually it's a bit of a doom job this because you know you're on a hand to nothing here and you're already struggling. So yeah, I think he might be a little bit put off by Wolves, but look, you never know because he might just look at it and think it's a Premier League job and I've only got to go in and win, you know, 6 matches between now and the end of the season. I think that could be enough to keep us up. So you don't know, but I would be surprised if he did go there. Yeah, I think it could be one of them bit of a poison chalice, that job.
Ravon91 has quite rightly pointed out Breuer won't be thrown on against Chelsea as it's his parent club, so he's not going to play against Chelsea. So
of course, yeah.
His options to play will be obviously Arsenal and City on Boxing Day. Probably a good time to talk about Arsenal now then. Where are we? Yeah, because we need to finish off soon. They'll be kicking themselves, Arsenal, I guess, this season, won't they, with City, you know, going into a bit of a decline, and Liverpool obviously points clear. This was kind of Arsenal's chance, you would have thought, to
close the gap.
Well, I think at the beginning of the season, I think I tipped Arsenal to win the league because I did think City would drop off. So, in a sense, my prediction has been half correct. Arsenal just can't seem to get a consistent run going where Liverpool have just been consistently good in terms of results. But like I say, they'll be kicking themselves now that they're just so far away from Liverpool themselves, and it's Chelsea who seem to have pushed themselves up.
I think Arsenal blew it, haven't they, for being honest. I think the position that they found themselves in last season, we haven't gone so close. The season before as well, or being in the picture the season before. I think for this year, for it to come around and them to be well off the boil, along with City fall off a cliff and Liverpool just storm up the mountain, don't they, and take control. Yeah, and that was a bad result for them on Sunday, wasn't it, as well? Because I know Fulham are good side, and I was impressed with Fulham when it comes to Goodison quite recently. But it's one of them, isn't it? If you want to win the league, you got to go and win a Fulham. You know, it's a game that you got to win. So they'll probably be a little bit scorned, I think, off the back of that for this weekend. But yeah, you do think they must be frustrated, and they must be kicking themselves as well because having basically chased City and been on the wrong end of City's relentlessness in the last couple of years. And we all know what it's like, that City team when, like, it was last year when they won 12 games on the bounce and 14 out of 15 or something like that from like the back end of the season. Trying to keep up with that every week is just so hard going, isn't it? So tough. But yeah, you just think, don't you, they must be kicking themselves, and let's just hope, we don't get the reaction and the backlash that this weekend.
The Blues have said West Ham win was the best result that we could ask for all day. We've got a positive Sean Dyche comment. Are you shocked?
No, because I think people should give him some praise.
John Jones has said, I would not roll the dice on Dyche now. He gets 1.1 points a game over 10 years. That is enough to keep us up. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a fair point from John. I think it's you've got to look at the bigger picture sometimes, haven't you? Not just isolated games.
Or Gary Pringer's countered that. He stays until the end of the season. We will be down by the end of April.
That's just his prediction,
yeah.
His opinion, isn't it?
Okay, team selection then, I guess. Let's move on to team selection. I mean, it's a tough one because for me personally, I would have picked the exact same team that beat Wolves to Liverpool. I think there could be scope to alter and change things here. I'm not entirely sure what. I'm going to let you go first before I do.
Jordan Pickford in goal. Then it's obviously going to be Young, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, Mikalenko, isn't it?
Well, are you predicting what Dyche will do, or are you saying what you would do?
If it was down to me, I'd have dropped Mikalenko for Wolves.
Yeah.
I'd have put Ashley Young at left back and put Nathan Patterson or Seamus Coleman at right back. But he's not going to do that because he's obviously still going to So if it was me picking it, I'd put Patterson probably at right back, Brownthwaite, Tarkowski, Young at left back. But I think it'll be Young at right back, Mikalenko at left back. The midfields, I think it'll be, and I think this would be my two as well as Mangala and Guy. Then I think I would go personally and die in the 10, Harrison, McNeil on either flank, Calvert-Lewin up top, but I think it'll be Ndiaye, McNeil, Decore, Calvert-Lewin.
Well, you do realise that Everton haven't won a game since 2022
without Decore.
So you're advocating for him not to be in the team?
History's got to change at some point, hasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. So a few more comments before we ask for predictions. David Murphy, no standards, fellas. You have no standards, Connor.
Are we talking like in life here or like...
Just in life. Simon says 3 wins this season is shocking for the size of the club. I agree with that, but I also think that I don't want to harp on about it too much. If we'd beaten Bournemouth, the table, I know everyone's going, well, we didn't, we got beat. If we'd beaten Bournemouth, the table would have looked a lot brighter. And I think coming away from that game was the worst I've ever felt, I think, from a football match. So what would we have been on? 17 points. And that gap would have been quite substantial. I think the problem that we've got now, let's not harp on about this December period, we know how tough it is, but we're now in this group of teams at the bottom. West Ham's win has kind of pushed them up to where United are. I'd expect them to get a couple more wins now because they've got quality players at the end of the day.
They've also spent a lot of money.
No, exactly. They've got a good squad, and they've got the 11 that they put out should match up against anyone. My concern is that we're not dragged down. We're in the bottom group, and West Ham are kind of going to pull themselves away, and Man United are then the next team above West Ham. So I fully expect us to stay in that group for the entirety of the season. Just hope that we can
be the top of it.
Well, be the top of it, but get enough points at least before March and April, where it's not looking like it's going to be a complete relegation battle with a couple of games to go. I'll be honest with you, I'd probably stick with the Wolves team. I agree with you on Mikalenko. I don't think he's been good enough, and I think competition for places is one thing he's not had. I think with the midweek behind closed doors friendlies, that might change with Patterson and Coleman hopefully getting back to full fitness. Whether Dyche pushes Ashley Young over to the left, I agree with you. I don't think he would, but at least the options there. Yeah, I just think stick with the same team against that won against Wolves. It's not going to be easy against Arsenal, let's face it. So I'm saying this should be the team, but I guess prediction-wise, it brings us on nicely to it. I fully expect us to get beat, to be honest.
I think take a point now, wouldn't you?
Even if we didn't play Decore as the number 10, we played Ndiaye as the number 10, or whatever, we changed it round, I'd still fully expect us to get beat, and that's just me being realistic, it's not being negative.
Yeah, I think a point would be huge, wouldn't it?
A point would be absolutely massive, but it would also put a dent in Arsenal's title chances as
well. I think as well, though, like I say, going back to what I said on Monday, and look, I know points are the most important thing, and performances don't really matter if you're picking up points, but you just want to see an improved display on our last away out against Man United, because that was nowhere near good enough. And if we do fall behind the early doors, which is possible, we don't fall apart like we did at Old Trafford and completely ruin any chance we had of getting back in the game with just some diabolical defending. So that's a big thing as well, that we don't just roll over and get hammered. We actually put up a bit of a fight and bit of, kind of stay in the game for as long as we can and give ourselves the best chance of getting something else to the game.
Which, in a way, I know nothing was riding on it in the game last season for us anyway, but that's what we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we were very unlucky, so it's not as if we can't do that. We can go there and, make a good account of ourselves. Any final thoughts? You're back for next week, Wednesday, so we'll be able to
dissect Arsenal and preview Chelsea.
Yeah, dissect what happened on Saturday. And what did you give a scoreline? You said you're going to get beat, didn't you?
I said a point would be a good result.
A point would be a good result. Yeah. I think we'll get beat. I think it'll be like just 2-0. That's just being realistic. Fingers crossed.
0-0.
I'm wrong.
I'll go for a positive 0-0.
Fair enough. Well, we'll finish it there then. Thanks for everyone who's joined today's live stream, and thank you for those listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Please remember to give us a like on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify as well. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully Chris Beasley is going to be back with a podcast on Friday to do a bit of a deep dive into the preview. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Connor O'Neill, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.